Painting pumpkins is easy and fun, especially if you sort of take a minute to take a look at the values like of the object. You think of it as a shape. So here's a couple of them. This one I outlined with ink. Gives it a little cartoony look to it. And this one is just simply with some lettering for a Thanksgiving thing. So let's take a look at how I prepared to get these started. First of all, I took a look at what a pumpkin really looks like. Obviously, it's an oval, not quite an oval, not a round. I'm not sure what this is. But I noticed that the entire shape changes from light to dark and then just a little bit of reflected light here. So the whole shape has form in and of itself. If you can't see that, turn it to a grayscale on your phone. And sometimes it's easier to see where the light and the dark and the medium and the reflected light is. Another way to do it, there's some apps online that you can get to that will posterize it. And what that means is it divides it into different values. This one's divided into 9 values, and I can see very easily that a very light value is here. One thing I may not have picked up on is that the dark value is on a diagonal across this particular pumpkin, and then it drops down sharply here. So once you've taken a look at what this shape looks like, you can sort of, as a whole, you can sort of move forward. The one other thing, though, is that each one of these sections has its own form, its own shape. So yes, it does follow the shape of the entire object, but each one changes things just ever so slightly. For instance, this line isn't straight across. It actually drops down in order to honor the light that hits the left side of each one of these shapes. So let me show you how I would move forward painting a pumpkin once I've understood what it looks like. So I have 3 here just for fun. And I'm thinking that, and because it's more of a cartoon look, I have exaggerated some of the lines. The lines aren't absolutely round. We've taken the opportunity to square off some of the lines and round off others. The first thing I'm going to do is remember where the whites are. I'm going to leave those. Then where the next color is a light yellow. So I'm just going to paint this with a light yellow, and that might be almost too light. And oftentimes people will let this, see, I've left some white there, Some people will let this dry because we're doing it very loose and easy. We're just going to go ahead forward with it. So that was Oriole and yellow, and now I'm going to take the lower part of the shape. Now it's no longer a pumpkin, it's a shape. And remember that line that went across like this? I'm going to honor that. Now let's make it even darker. Now one thing to know about when you're getting darker and darker is that a way to get darker and still hold its luminescence is to go down the color wheel. So we started up here, I'm going down. Fortunately, it's an orange pumpkin, so I'm just going to go down here, and I'm going to go down to the red and maybe all the way down to the red violet. If I go across the color wheel, that starts making the colors a little bit darker, so I want to stop just before I get to that part. Okay, so I'm going to use a permanent rose here, and again just be at the bottom. Now when you lift your brush, it will create a puddle, so be sure that you're lifting your brush where you want that puddle to be. All right, so I just put in some real heavy paint, and now I'm just going to sort of smooth it out here and let the water do some moving. All right, and now in order to show, so if I went, let me start here. If I go straight to purple from yellow, it's going to be a dull color. But if I go next to red and then to purple, it will be perfectly lovely. Yes. So let's do that, and let's go to purple, violet, or lavender, whatever you want to call it. And we'll give it a little bit of a darker edge there. And then up here for the little stem here, I'm going to be sure not to touch this wet part here. And let's go ahead and put in part of a leaf. Now, I think that was actually less than 5 minutes. But I'll continue on because I'm making a little card to give away. Now I have a nice green leaf, but is that good enough? No. We want to put in more color, so I'll just charge it with some additional color. Yes, and I'll just let that sit. I'm going to put additional color in this part too, but that'll take a minute. I'll let that dry just for a little bit. Now this is very wet, so, and it's not very, I don't like those lines too much. So let's accentuate, let's get some purple in here and accentuate the bottom of this pumpkin. All right, good. Now I know that there's some reflected light over on this side, but since I said 5 minutes, I better leave it all alone, don't you think? Okay. Let's let that bleed up a bit. Sadly, since I have the pumpkin in front of me and a brush in my hand, can't quite leave it alone. Okay, let's go over to this one. Now this one is hidden from the light a little bit, so I'm going to use a darker yellow for the base color. And I'll pretend like the sun is hitting the top here. And give it a nice background. Now here I'm going to go straight for an orange, so I'll mix that orange up first. Getting a little heavy on the red here. Let's get some more of that new gamboge out. Okay. Sometimes the bottom side of this brush misbehaves, so I have to bring the shape out further than I had intended. All right, and then I'm going to make that little area a little bit softer. There we go. And now let's do some shaping of the lines. This is very, very loose. And just let that dry a little bit before I get started on that. While it's drying, I'll do some of the stems and leaves. And this is not really going to be anything special, just an indication that there's something there. Okay, let's do this one too. All right, and so if I am good, I can do this one without messing this up, but if it runs a little bit down here, it'll be fine. So again, this top part is in the sun, so I'll let it have some of the light yellow. And then as I come down behind it, I'll get darker and darker because I am going down the color wheel. Okay. And I'm going to pretend like this light here is reflected light, so I can make this much darker against this gourd here. Now I'm going to purposely mess this line up so that it becomes softer, and it will bleed down into this area, which will make me very happy. All right, and then let's just go a little bit darker in here. And I'll just keep playing because I can. This bottom line I'm not terribly happy with. And let's make this a lot darker in here. And so what I'm doing is I'm honoring the inside shape. Now as this dries, sometimes this dries lighter than I'm anticipating. I'm going to wait for that to dry completely, and then I will come over this with new gamboge, which will soften some of that. That's a little bit brighter than I would like. So now we'll wait just for a little minute until this dries, and we'll come back. While we're waiting, let's just darken this whole thing. Honor the shape of each little gourd, each little part of the pumpkin. Come on up. There we go. And let's make that just a little bit darker. And so now I've added quite a bit of blue to this purple mixture I've made. There's a lot of water on here because I'm using a brush that holds a lot of water. And then I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the floor in. And what I like about this process is if I touch it somewhat, it will make a hard and soft line. So easy to do. There we are. Okay, so now this is a little bit drier. So let's define the sides of these little sections a little bit more. Okay. I think I'll soften this a little bit. As this is drying now, this has lost its sheen. I now have a thirsty brush, which is a really clean brush that has been dried. And so what I'm going to do is just pull out some of the paint on the sunny side of these sections. Let's see here. There we go. At this point, I could get a little crazy. Like I said, I have a painting in front of me and a brush in my hand, and that is the kiss of time, because now all I want to do is just play. All right. Now we'll let that dry, and then I'm going to glaze over it just to give it some more interest. I'm really loving how some of this stuff is going out of control. It's out of control, but under my supervision, so to speak. Before I started painting this thing, in the hopes that it would turn out, I put some tape around the edge to make it a little border. And it just gives it a little bit of zing. Isn't that nice?